What's up, amigos? Welcome to Link Builder. My name is Antonio, and in today's video I'm going to teach you how to start your own screen printing shop at home when you have no funding to start with. Now, this method I'm going to show you guys is how I did it, and it took me about less than a year to have everything set up. So stay tuned to find out how. Now, for you guys who are thought about opening your own screen printing shop and you started doing research, you found out that you need to buy a lot of equipment such as presses, your exposure unit, washout booth, your flash dryer, your conveyor oven, and all the screens, all that. And it's really pricey. And a lot of you guys thought about it, and you guys said, well, I don't have the money to open my shop. And that's what kept me from the beginning as well, because I never thought I would have the money to open my own shop. I thought it was too expensive. And I have always wanted to open my own shop for years and years. And the money problem was always an excuse for me. And there's one time where I read a quote where it said, if you truly want something, you'll find a way. If you don't, you'll just find excuses. And you know what? I got tired of that excuse that I didn't have the money. So I decided, I'm going to find a way to get the money and start opening my shop. Because there's something I realized. Because I realized that time goes by real quick. For example, for me, when my daughter turned 3 years old, when that moment came, I realized that, man, time flew by quick. You know, those 3 years passed like that. And that got me thinking, you know what? If throughout those years, every time I got paid, if I were to put some money aside so I could invest in my shop, that moment I would have the money to buy at least a press or something. So in the beginning of going into 2018, that's when I decided, you know what? I'm going to make a plan to get the money to open the shop. And I'm going to teach you guys how I did it. And hopefully this will help you do the same and finally opening your own shop. Now, the first thing that I did, I made a list of all the supplies and equipment that I need to run a screen printing shop. And I actually have the list right here. Let me show you guys real quick. This is the list I made. I just put a screen printing order list. I had everything. You know, I had what I thought I would need for my screen printing shop. For example, a heat press, laser temp gun, squeegees, rulers, screens, a work table, flash dryer, everything. Even for to have my own website for my screen printing shop. And I made some price examples here. And that's how I first started. Then I made a second list where I basically divided to equipment and supplies. And I did everything again. And this time I made an order to see which one I need to buy first. Now, the way I made that list of to buy first is I thought about what do I need to start screen printing. And one of the first thing is software. The second is your materials, that's the squeegee, screens, all that. The third that you need is a press. The fourth is a way to expose your screens. The fifth, and the most important, is the way to cure your shirts, because you don't want to print and for the sign to wash off. Oh, and six, I forgot, cleaning chemicals. And that's how I made my list of what to buy first. Alright, so after I made my list of what to buy first, I didn't have money, right? I was starting the year 2018. My New Year's resolution was for every week I got paid, I will put some money aside so I could invest, for example, in the press. But at the same time, I will buy the little small things. For example, one week I'll buy a squeegee. The following week I'll buy a screen. The next week I'll buy ink. And all those little small things that will help you out in screen printing, that's what I decided to buy first. Okay, before I explain more into the details of how I went buying my things, I'm going to tell you guys something. As you realize, when you're on YouTube, you're doing research on how to screen print, you see all these shops with the most expensive, not the most expensive, but the top like equipment. You know, their big presses. You know, they have their flash dryers with automatic that will turn on and off. You see them with big conveyor dryers, not conveyor ovens, and all these chemicals that they use. And for some starting out, you think that you need all that, but in reality, you don't really need everything. I mean, you could start with buying like the cheap or used equipment, and as you get more experience and you learn more, that's when you can start, you know, upgrading to better equipment. And I'm gonna show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. Now, the first thing we're gonna start off with the software. Before you start screen printing, you need to make your designs, separate colors. So that's one thing you cannot cheap out on, because you have to buy, for example, Adobe Illustrator or Corel Draw, one of those. Now, I started with Illustrator, but I realized that Corel is easier for screen printers. I mean, it's basically meant for screen printing, because here in my city, I live here in Mexico, and basically everyone uses Corel Draw. And even the maestro, he'll show me how he does his CMYK separations, the simulated process. And he does that all within Corel. And I realized it is better, but I never got to learn it because I got so used to Illustrator that I didn't want to learn something all over again. So if you have no experience with none of that, I recommend Corel. It'll be probably a lot easier. But that's something you cannot cheap out because you have to buy that. Now, the other thing is press. Now, you want to buy a press. And a lot of people say, buy a one color press. But for me, I recommend don't buy a one color, one station press. You might as well buy four color, at least a four color, because yeah, you'll tell yourself, you know, I'm going to start with one color design, you know, something simple so I can use it. But once you start printing, that moment you're going to want to print with two colors, another design. So there's no point of buying a one color station when all of a sudden you want to upgrade. So I recommend buying a four color, one station press. Now, if you don't want to invest that much money yet on a press, do what I did. What I did was I built my own press. I built my one color, one station out of wood. And I'll leave a link in the video, in the description below, on how to build that press. Now I actually have here's my press that I built. I actually took it apart because after I bought this press right here, I took it apart so I could use the wood for my inks. But I'll show you the picture right now of how I looked like before. So yeah, so on the press, buy at least a four color, one station press. Look for a used one. If you could buy a used one, do it. Because when you're starting out, don't get the best equipment. Don't buy the, you know, what are some of the top presses out there, you know. You want to waste thousands of dollars on a press when you're starting out. You know, go cheap or go used. When starting out, once you get used to it and you start getting more orders, then that's when it's time to upgrade. But when you're just beginning out, you don't need to worry about that. With the one color, one station, the one I built is a good way to start out with. And since it is a one color, one station, that's the reason I recommend don't buy the top, you know, high quality press for one station, because in reality, those micros, they're not even necessary. Because if you're going to do one color, what's the point of having micro registration or, you know, the perfect off contact? That's not really important. That's more like if you're doing more complicated designs, but that's more in the long run. Alright, so let's go back to the way how I did it. And sorry it's kind of like confusing because I'm trying to explain how I did it, also what you need to start screen printing, so I'm kind of getting twisted here. But this is how I decided to do it. So I made my list of what to buy first, right? And the first thing I decided to do was buy heat press. Now, the reason I decided to buy heat press was because I wanted to find a way to cure my shirts because there was no point of me printing if I had nothing to cure with. So I decided to go with the heat press. Now, you could go with the heat gun, but for me, I decided for the heat press because it'll be a lot faster to cure, a large image, a large design. Also, you could do heat transfer, so that's like 2-in-1 right there. So I decided to buy that first, alongside with my, my small materials, at least my screens. I recommend buying 2 screens, your squeegee and your inks. That way you can start printing right away. Now you can be asking yourself, what about the press? Well, if you're just starting out, build that wood press that that left in the description. That's the one way to start without investing in a expensive press. So I decided to do that. Now when I first started, after I bought my press, I was looking online to buy a screen printing press. And since I did have that one color, one station, I still wanted to buy at least a 4-color. That way I could, do multiple designs because I already knew that I'm not gonna be happy with just printing one color. And I went online and I was looking at presses over here, and there was one. It was a 4-color, one station, but it was a tabletop, and it was around like 3,000 pesos. No, it was 2,000 pesos with the shipping. But I decided to keep looking. I started looking on Facebook, and I found one that was a 6-color, one station press with the table. And I got lucky because it was the same city. I contacted the person selling it. I asked him, how much do you want for it? And he said 2,000 pesos. I was like, literally, I felt like lucky right there because that was a good price. The same price I would have gotten for the 4-color, one station tabletop. But this was 6 colors and it comes with the table. But I didn't have the money at that moment. And I told him, if I get the money and if you still have it, I'll buy it from you. And he told me, don't worry about it because I'm still using it. And it was actually the master who was selling it. And time went by. A few days later, my friend Julio from Phoenix, he sent money to me. And with that money, I was able to buy this press. And that's something I want to tell you guys about. When you don't have money, one of the first persons you want to ask is your family or friends if they're willing to help out. And if they're willing to help you with some cash. But I believe in this, that you could talk to your friends. I have this idea, to do this. And I'll be like, oh, yeah, okay. But if you actually start trying to accomplish that goal you're trying to reach, they'll see that. They'll see that you're taking your time, your effort, and they'll believe in you more because they're seeing you actually working hard for it, and that's when they're more willing to help. Because, okay, so let's jump back before I got this press. So there was a moment where I had my heat press, and I had my 1-color, one station wood press. I had my inks, I had my squeegee, and I went to go buy Emotion. Now, there's a good thing and bad thing about when you're starting out screen printing is the emotion, because a lot of emotions, they have like a time limit. Once you mix it, once you prepare it, you have like a month to use all of it before it goes to waste. And that's something to worry about. But luckily here, the emotion that I sell here is that whole mix 10 parts with 1 part. And that literally saved me because I was able to prepare just a small amount of emotion, so I won't waste all of it. It actually took me about a year to waste all of it. Alright, so basically I have everything to start screen printing, but I need a way to burn my screens. And a lot of people, they buy those transparency films where you print. Now here where I live, they don't have those. And here we use a different paper called albanene. And it's kind of like a tracing paper. And I started using that. When you look on the videos of, opening your screen printing, how to prepare your films, a lot of people, they recommend, they tell you, buy an Epson printer with Acrylic, all that, And it's expensive. literally I couldn't afford that. So I decided, I'm just gonna use, a regular printer to print my films. And I wasn't really worried about, the ink being that will pay. I was just starting out, with simple designs. And I was printing at home first, my screens. But it wasn't after I met the master where they told me, just go to Office Depot, they'll print your films there. And I was like, oh, why didn't I think of that? So yeah, you just go to Office Depot to print your films. And as time goes by, invest in the printer. But in the meantime, when you're starting out, go to Office Depot. Now, to expose your screens, you see all the videos, with their nice exposure units, and that's expensive as well. I wanted that because I saw YouTube videos, how to do that. But I decided, you know what, I'm going to use the sun. That's the easy way. The sun, or use the light. And actually I have a video of how I do with the sun. It takes about like 30 seconds to expose your screens. And for the light, this is what I used to expose when it's just the light I use, the LED light. I use that and I put my screen down here. And I use that because sometimes I'll come home and there's no sun, so I'll use that. So instead of investing in a very expensive exposure unit, use a light or use the sun. Simple as that. The Epson printer is like, I don't know how many $100s. Accurate, really, really expensive. And Accurate is usually, it's just, so you could print dark films. And also, it helps you, print halftones. And there's also, what's it called? Separation Studio, where, you upload your design and it separates the colors to halftones. All that's expensive. Now, there's a way to do it for free. And you can use Photoshop. And you can find YouTube videos on how to separate colors using Photoshop. And when you're starting out, do that first. To buy Accurate, I recommend doing that once you start getting, actual, print orders where the quality is really required. That way they can come back. So I'm not using Accurate or none of that. I'm using just straight up Photoshop. And probably eventually with time, after I save more money, I will buy a good printer, because I'm tired. Sometimes I go to Office Depot and I take the wrong file, or it comes out wrong in the film, and I got tired because I have to go back, reprint it. If I have my own printer, save me time. And also, so I could get darker films, because it is important to have really dark films. That way you can avoid overexposing your screens. The same thing, because since I print them in Office Depot, the films are not that dark. And when you're washing it out, it takes a while to wash everything out. So, yeah, but since I'm just starting out, simple designs, I could deal with that right now. But as time goes, I am going to try to get better equipment to avoid those headaches, when things go wrong. If you saw my series on how to screen print, that 2.5, where I literally took all day just to expose 2 screens. Yeah, like 2 screens. Like, it was ridiculous. All because my goddamn films were not perfect. So yeah. Alright, so another thing is the washing booth that comes with exposing your screens. Because once you expose your screens, wash out the stencil, right? And after you're done printing, you want to reclaim it. And that washout booth comes really handy. I don't have one. I wish I did, but I don't have it. Now, another way around that is for when you're washing out the stencil, the majority of people, they use a pressure washer. Now, when I first started, I didn't have a pressure washer. The only thing I had was, where is it at? Was this little, what was it, a squeeze bottle? This is what I used to wash out my stencils. Some really cheap, how do you say? A very cheap method of washing out your stencil, but it works. So if you don't have a pressure washer, you can use this, or you can use just your spray nozzle on your water hose. Now I don't use that because here, we don't have a, what do you call it, a water pipeline, where we get water. We don't have that, so I have no pressure washer. I have no pressure, no water pressure to use the spray nozzle. That's why I use that bottom. So yeah, but now I do have a pressure washer. It's not actually mine, it's my boss. He let me borrow it. Because when I would reclaim screens, I would take a long time to reclaim my screens. And with that pressure washer, it saves a lot of time. So you don't have to buy that first, but I recommend to buy because it's going to help you a lot. Especially when reclaiming. Now, alright. So we got a way to expose our screens. After you're exposing your screens, you start printing. I'm not going to show you guys the way to, kind of cheap ways to print here. For example, what I use when I tape my screens, I use regular brown tape. Because, again, they don't have screen printing tape here. And I use brown tape, which is, one, is really cheap. And two, it works well. I don't really know why people don't really use it. I mean, I use it. If I got a chance to use screen printing tape, I don't think I'll go for it because the brown tape works. Just don't leave it on the screen for too long, because if you leave it on the screen for too long, it does start to get hard to take off. You have like little pieces left under. So yeah, so use brown tape to tape up your screens. And for spatulas, you see a lot of people using these spatulas right here. Now I only have one. It was a lot of hard work to find this. I found this at where they sell like bakery stuff. And this cost me like 60 pesos. And I don't even use it. What I use are these spatulas. These are a lot easier. Not like I say, these are a lot better for me, because once these are thin, it's easier to scoop up the ink off the screen. That's what I use. Especially since I use those small bottles for the ink. That big, spatula doesn't work for me. So, once you start printing your shirt, let's go to the how to cure. And like I mentioned, you can use a heat gun or heat press. Those are basically like two cheap ways to do it. And there's no reason to buy a conveyor oven. Like, I wish I did have one, but that's basically only if you're printing like hundreds of shirts or a large quantity of orders daily, because it's faster. Because, for example, that heat press that I use, it works fine. But the bad thing is, it does take a while, because I print my shirts. I used to print my shirts. I'll put them aside. I'll let it dry. Then I'll bring my heat press, plug it in, turn it on, wait till it heats up. And one by one, 12 seconds, And literally I would take like extra hour to cure my shirts. And if you're doing a lot of shirts every day, a lot of orders, that's going to take up your entire day. And screen printing, time is money, because that hour I'm wasting creating my shirts with that heat press, I could be, reclaiming some screens, coding or something else. So I started out with that. And after I realized how long it took, that's when I decided to buy a flash dryer. Because the flash dryer is a lot faster. Because one, you print your shirt, you can use the flash, to flash your ink, so you can do another coat. And you can cure your shirts with the flash dryer, which saves me a lot of time, because I'll print my shirt, I'll cure the shirt with the flash dryer, and I'll put it aside, and I'm done. When I was using the heat press, I'll put the shirts aside, then I'll do the cure. So that's when I decided to buy this flash dryer. Now let's go to the chemicals, especially for cleaning up. Now, you see all those fancy chemicals, the ink remover, the greaser, haze remover, all of that. And I literally thought I needed all those chemicals, especially, the emulsion remover, everything. But I was limited here. Because, like I mentioned, they don't have almost none of those chemicals here in Mexico. Well, at least in my city. So I had to find an alternative. And for example, for ink remover, since they don't have it here, I use gasoline. And it's cheap. It works, but it does smell. And that's what I'm using right now. For cleaning up here, the spatulas, and another thing is, you see people using those ink wipes. And at first I wanted those ink wipes, but there's something a lot cheaper than those ink wipes that still works good, and they're baby wipes, which I have to. I mean, these clean the spatulas easily, man. Like, that's basically what I use them for, just to clean off the spatulas and the squeegees. So yeah, there's no reason to buy those ink wipes that are extremely expensive. Just go with the baby wipes. That's a cheap alternative that works. But buy the store brand. Don't go out buying those Huggies wipes, because those will cost you money. So next is reclaiming. Now, there's the emulsion remover. You could buy it. I don't buy it because I don't have access to it. But what I do use is chlorine. And you could do that at first. Instead of buying, the chemical, use chlorine if you want. I'll leave the video or the link on where I teach you guys how to do that. So those are the chemicals that I use. Alright, so I'm going to show you guys another little shop tour of what exactly I use to screen print. Now, flash dryer, you need that. Press, and like I mentioned, this is no high quality press. I mean, there's no micros in here, there's no off contact, and these pallets, they don't move, but it works. My cheap wood screens, my heat press, how I first started creating my shirts. And this ain't no top brand, this is a cheap brand right here. Another thing I want to add, you see all those tutorials on YouTube on when exposing your screens, that you need your little dark room, so you could have your screen stores, not screen store, your screen store, and where you're applying the emulsion. And when I first started, I literally, I was all careful with my little yellow light, covering my screens with black cloth so it won't accidentally expose. I was being real careful with all that. And when I was doing my first, when I was exposing for the first time, when I was using the sun, I'll get my little screen, I'll cover it up in with a black cloth, like a black shirt. I'll go outside carrying it, expose it, cover it with a shirt, go to my little yellow dark room, remove the film, and I'll start washing it. Then, and that took a long time to do that. Then I went to the maestro, and I asked him if he could help me with exposing one screen. And that's when I saw him, applying the emulsion right there with the light, with the next to the window, drying it with the heat gun, and not taking none of those precautions, being, yellow light safe room. And when I saw him, I literally started laughing inside because I felt embarrassed. Cause it literally took him like less than 5 minutes to do everything, and I took a long time being all careful, and it still didn't come out perfect. So that whole thing with the yellow dark room, you don't really need it. You only need it to store your screens. Really use a dark room. Sometimes I just turn off the light. Alright, so let me recap everything that you need to start screen printing. The first thing is your software, such as Illustrator or CorelDRAW, one of those. And that's something you cannot cheap out on again. You have to buy that. The second thing you need is a press. Now, again, you don't need those top Pretzel and micros. You know, when you're starting out, that's not really important. Start out with that cheap wood, do-it-yourself press. Then you need your materials to actually do the printing, such as screens, inks, squeegees, spatulas, and your cleaning materials. You could buy the whole ink remover, the emulsion remover as well, but you don't really need that. Like I mentioned, since I don't have it, I use gas and chlorine. Then you need a way to expose your screens. And if you don't have money to buy an exposure unit, like I mentioned, you could use a light to point on your screen. Make sure you have your screen with something on the bottom and a glass pressing the film with the screen, and have your light. That's a cheap way to expose your screens, or you can use the sun as well. Then for a washout booth, like I mentioned, you don't really need it. The next thing is the way to cure your shirts. And to cure your shirts, there's the heat gun, a heat press, a flash dryer, or a conveyor dryer. The conveyor dryer, don't even bother looking into that until you start printing hundreds of shirts daily, because that will save you time. The cheapest one is the heat gun. But if you're going to buy a heat gun to cure your shirts, you're going to be really patient, because it's going to take a long time to cover, especially a large design. That's why I recommend at least the heat press or the flash dryer. The heat press is cheap. You can use it to cure shirts. You can do heat transfers. But the flash dryer, a lot faster, especially when you're doing, flash print, helps out a lot. So, if you want to start your own screen printing shop and you have no money, do it like how I did it. Buy the little things first. Every time you get paid, buy squeegee, then buy some ink, buy some screens, buy rulers, tape, all those cleaning materials. Buy those little things. At the same time, put some money aside so you can save up for the more expensive equipment, such as the press, a flash dryer. That's basically the most expensive things you need first to actually start printing. Okay, so after you bought all your most important equipment to start printing, there's one more thing you need, and that is your time. Because you're going to have to give all your time and effort into this. Because if you don't, your shop will never work or function at all. Use your time wisely. Instead of watching dumb videos on YouTube, watch tutorials on how to design, how to save your colors. That way you can learn, and that will be a real investment into your shop that will help you along the way. So use it really wisely. Alright amigos, well, that's all for today's video. I hope it made sense. Now if it didn't, or you still have questions, make sure to leave in the comments below, because I am planning on redoing this, because I did this real quick and I'm pretty sure I left some parts out. So stay tuned for a redo of this entire video. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about how I did it. Also, leave a comment how you guys did it. How did you go about starting your screen print shop? How did you find fundings? That way other people could get an idea of how to do it. And I'm still at the very beginning of this shop. Like I mentioned, I just started a year ago and I still have a long way to go. So if you're interested in following my journey as I build up, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit the bell to be notified when I make a video. That way, if you're also starting a shop, you could go along with me, learn from my mistakes, because I'm still learning. And that will help you as well. Now, if you're also interested in helping me build up my shop, I'll have my info in the description below. While you're down in the description, also left the link for this shirt right here. I sent a few just I think a week ago, a couple weeks ago to Phoenix. So if you're interested in buying one, the link's in the description below. Alright amigos, well that's all for today's video. I'll see you next time.